and caused quite a stir because most of the members didn't believe he was really a philosopher, because he was doing just what Alan Sokal argued in his work, in his the Sokal affair. He's just nonsense. He creates all these post-structuralism, that questions the objectivity or stability of the various interpretive structures that are posited by structuralism. It's a critique of Michel Foucault, really. And it's clearly one of those that if we go and we look at Noam Chomsky on
since the 1970s, postmodernism has had a great deal of influence on at least part of the left in this country, and it has been characterized by, among other things, as being quite critical of science and of the Enlightenment tradition. I wonder if you could talk about your view of postmodernism and whether you think that its influence is waning.
I'd say there's a lot of postmodern work I just don't understand, so I can't comment on it. It seems to me some exercise by intellectuals who were talking to each other in very obscure ways, and I can't follow it, and I don't know if anybody else can. Postmodern views of science, by and large, have been pretty embarrassing, I think. And there's some interesting work on this. There's a book by the two physicists, Jean Bertrand and Alan Sokal. Both of them have to be political radicals. Just running through, it's mostly Paris postmodernism, what postmodern commentators have said about science. And it is really embarrassing, to the extent you can understand it. On the other hand, there is a point. Insofar as they say that everything that people do is some kind of social construction, depends on the historical context, cultural context, that part's true. I don't know if you need the whole postmodern baggage to say those things. My feeling is not. At least personally, I haven't seen anything that it doesn't seem to be has to be said in anything but monosyllables. It looks, as far as I understand it, it's pretty straightforward. And I get the feeling that it's kind of, there isn't a drive among intellectuals to make things look difficult. It's a kind of self-protection. If what I'm doing can be done by, the guy who's repairing my furnace, okay, then who am
I like that. I use more hating.
Physicists over there who talk complicated things and have to, I don't understand them, so I like to be like them. That drive is clearly there, and I think it should be resisted. If we say things simply so that people can understand them, we should.
So, of course, if you could get his drift, he's very critical of this whole movement. But the last one I'd like to mention, who's really one of my favorites, is Slavoj.
Why is Novartis perfect for nasal congestion?
The most common complaint that I will hear in my office is,
And I should mention that
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Good evening. Well,
so just real quickly, Varoufakis, Yanis Varoufakis, is pretty famous as well. He's from Greece. He used to work in the government in Greece. He's an economist, and he's written lots of books about the economy. One of them is titled The Weak the strong do what they can and the weak do what they must. Something. Yeah, it's actually a title from Thucydides' Peloponnesian War, talking about Athens attacking whatever the town was that they totally destroyed. Sorry, but in any case, he's also been very active as a writer and a commentator, and uses the jargon that Noam Chomsky is criticizing, and so does Slavoj Žižek, who I'll put him in there.
Of muddle thinking. So how come you're so celebrated as a Hegelian in a country which doesn't give a damn about Hegel?
A good point. What I would, as you hinted at, but in a way that you would agree, where I would maybe a little bit disagree with you is Kant is.
I'll have to criticize what Varoufakis said, actually introducing him, that he's a Hegelian. He has three loves: Hegel, Hegel, and Hegel. But in any case, he says, the typical American college experience in philosophy is that you get the history of philosophy, everything we've been doing. You get up to Kant, and once you get to Kant, they skip Hegel and go to the British analytic school, etc. Well, that's totally false. Notice in this class, you got a dose of Hegel, because it seems obvious to me that you need to get what's going on in continental Europe. And remember my thesis that actually Hegel's philosophy is the basis for American pragmatism. So you need a dose of Hegel to get there.
Has two faces. It's more complex. For example, and crazy things like this give me seriously an intellectual orgasm, which at my age it's maybe better than real orgasm, which is, did you read a small...
This was on his 75th birthday.
You know that Kaliningrad, ex-Königsberg, there...
Beautiful little anomaly.
Yeah, they have a governor there. And he recently said that they are not proud of Kant there, because Kant is the origin of all modern evils, socialism, human freedom, women's rights, and he finished with that Kant is ultimately responsible for the Ukrainian war. So I think that Kant is the point of split. So why from Kant to Hegel? Because I will not go into detail.
So you get the idea. By the way, he's got a tic. He explains he is not on cocaine. A lot of people thought he was on cocaine because he's always, he's just got this constant running, or what, I don't know, but he's always like that. It's also, remember, he was born in Yugoslavia. He's speaking English, which I think was about maybe his fifth or sixth or seventh or eighth or ninth language, I'm not sure. Although it's clearly of the foreign languages I've heard him speak, it's, by the way, I noticed recently that our language department is not called a foreign language department anymore. Always used to be called foreign language. And now it isn't, because they realized an awful lot of the languages they teach are actually American languages from the US, because we've got a lot of speakers speaking. Well, here in Anchorage we have, over 100 different foreign language, 100 languages. Take away the foreign, let me get rid of it. It's going to take me years to get rid of that. I did my last quiz question last class, right? I asked you about the debate between Boris Johnson and Mary Beard. So I don't have another quiz question for today. How did that happen? I must have doubled up at some point, because I had 30 and 30 and so on. Actually, the last, I don't have 30, because our last session, which is a double session, counts as 29 and 30. So we don't actually have that many lectures. I'll show you a page on Slavoj Žižek. He is, if you're still wondering who you're going to do your term paper on, which is due, he was one of the ones on my list. if you wanted to do him. He's easier than he looks, I think, by the way. One of his books, it's kind of neat. Hegel writes in his Logic, he starts off by talking about being and nothingness, and how the dialectic begins with that and goes on. And then, as we mentioned, Heidegger has his book, Being and Time, and you get Sartre, Being and Nothingness, and you get Thomas Metzinger, Being No One, and so on. Zizek's big book is less than nothing. Less than nothing. So he's fun. But the trouble is, he does tell a lot of dirty jokes, and he does that to point out that that's probably part of what made him so famous. That people like to listen to all of those dirty jokes. But also he criticizes new politicians like Trump, for example, who say lots of dirty words, and it's kind of shown that history has changed all of that, and so dirty words. In my generation, the funniest comic that talked about dirty words was George Carlin, who did a sketch on the words you can't use on TV.
Sometimes, well, hell yeah. Sometimes it's okay, but not all the time. And they're the only words that seem to have that restriction. I mean, there are a lot of words you can say whenever you want, Pneumonia! All right, you can't yell in the hospital a great deal, but what the hell? There are words that you can say, no problem. Topography! No one has ever gone to jail for screaming topography. But there are some words that you can go to jail for. There are some words that we just have decided we will not say all the time. Sometimes, okay. If you're running through the jungle chasing somebody that we're at war with, you can holler them. If you're shooting a criminal, it's okay. It's the all-American thing. Dirty fucking crook. But if you're with the bishop's wife at lunch, it's better not to ask for the goddamn lettuce. You know what I mean? It's just like we've decided there'd be some words we won't say all the time. And I was just trying to find out which words they were. For sure. All of them. I wanted a list. Because nobody gives you a list. That's the problem. They don't give you a list. Wouldn't you think it'd be normal if they didn't want you to say something to tell you what it is? Nobody even tells you when you're a kid what the words are that you're supposed to avoid. You have to say them to find out which ones they are. Shit! Oh, fuck! That's two. Oh, Ma, that's enough trial and error, huh? Please, Ma, give me a list, huh? All right, you're 6 years old now, and here's the list of words your dad and I...
You get the idea. All right. So I'll be here for our final session, and you're welcome to come. And basically, I have no plan to talk about anything in particular. It'll be just whatever you guys want to talk about. You can talk about current events or whatever, I suppose. But I'll be here. I'm probably going to bring a book to read in case no one else shows up. So that's pretty much all I have for you. Please send me everything, and make sure that I get it by. I'll send responses back as fast as I can, because of course, if I don't get your work, then it's the same as if you didn't send it to me. So make sure I actually got it, etc. Was this fun? Did you get your money's worth? Besides Ray, I know Ray enjoyed it, but she laughed every class. But I don't know if anybody else enjoyed it or not.
My 6-year-old said a dirty word. So we were playing a rhyming game, and there was a switch in the living room. We were just kind of playing out in the living room, and so we got